Radio. Hi, everyone. Stacey Barr here, of course. I want to welcome you to this webcast. Our topic this time around is culture is a symptom, not a cause. We're going to explore how the right use of measurement becomes the tipping point for a true performance culture. Now, leaders can often look to culture, lots of people can look to culture as a reason why organizational performance isn't really where it could be or where they want it to be. They might run some workshops and rewrite the values or try to shift mindsets. And these things might lift performance, but only briefly, if at all. And the reason is that culture is a symptom, not a cause of how organizations manage performance. So culture is not the lever, it is what you get when the right levers are pulled. And three of those levers, maybe it's surprising, but they're found in how your organization measures performance. It sounds back to front, right? I'm sure it does. And even when people are registering for this webcast, they're asking in the registration form, but surely it's culture that drives performance. It's not the other way around. But I assure you, this isn't back to front. When every team, including the leadership team, by the way, uses these three levers, something profoundly shifts. People stop defending and they start improving performance. Accountability stops being imposed and it starts being chosen. And the culture that leaders have been trying to build arrives as a byproduct. So we're kind of exploring a tipping point for this to happen here in this webcast with me and our Australasian pump partner, Mark Hocknell. We're going to explore why shifting how your organization uses measurement turns out to be that tipping point toward a high performance culture that will last. Now, some of you may not know Mark or you may not know me, so we'll go through our usual quick introductions. Like I said, I'm Stacey Barr. Organizational performance has always been my thing. Ever since uni, really, back in the early 90s. It gives you a clue how old I am now. Pump is the methodology that I created to do this, to do all this measurement stuff, because everything I tried to use in my early days didn't solve the real world struggles that I had, that my colleagues had, and then when I came out into the consulting world, that my clients had and continued to have. Right then, from the start, Pump, however, was never just about a technical solution to measurement. It's always been at least half about the human side. And those of you who have used Pump and used it well, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. This is why Mark and I can share some insights today about that relationship between measurement and the very human culture that it has to operate within. With you today, Mark Hocknell is, of course, our Australasian Asia Pacific partner, and he trains and coaches and facilitates our clients across Australia, New Zealand, and the Asia Pacific. So, Mark, I think you personally really liked this topic today, and if I remember correctly, you might have even been the one to suggest it.
Yeah, it was me. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. And yeah, I suggested this topic. I heard Stacey in a discussion one time quote Harold, who was the CEO we're going to look at later on, um, to actually say culture is a symptom, not a cause. And the phrase just made me stop and think and say, okay, so in 30 years of working in and around organizations, that actually makes sense. So yeah, I suggested the topic as I often hear leaders say that the problem in their organization is the culture, which then often leads to those leaders then trying to redefine the culture or bring in some culture experts that can run a program and change the culture. There are people that actually claim to do that. But changing the culture of the organization means changing the way people think and feel about the workplace, changing the collective behaviors. However, it's the behavior of the leaders that has the biggest impact on the workplace culture. The accepted behaviors of the leaders and managers create the behaviors that are the norm here, which becomes the workplace culture. The leaders actually set the tempo and the tone of the organization about the way the work gets done and how the work gets done. So with that trigger, if you like, from what we had before, Stacey, Stacey and I'll guide you through exploring this seemingly back to front relationship between measurement and culture. So the kind of culture that most leaders want is this high performance culture where people are generally engaged in and accountable for the organization's success. It's a culture that improves performance continually through learning and adapting. And genuine learning and adapting requires evidence, and that's where measurement comes in. This is the context for what we'll cover in this webcast. Firstly, why every team needs a clear, shared picture of what success looks like at their level, and what goes wrong when they don't have that, and how, when measurement is associated with blame, it creates cynicism and resistance. And leaders are trying to transform that. So it creates that cynicism and resistance to what the leaders are trying to do and to what to do instead. So why letting teams own their measures rather than reporting to them is the shift that makes a performance culture self-sustaining. And to explore all this, we'll draw on the real-world experience of the CEO, Harold, who used Pump to build a performance culture so strong, it allowed him to reinvent the entire performance management system of his organization. In other words, taking teams from hating measurement to using it to self-organize and deliver results they could prove and improve. So before we dive in though, let's have a quick look at how we can support your organization beyond this webcast. So these free webcasts are designed to give you a taste of Pump's unique approach and the impact it has then on organizational performance management. Our flagship programs are the Pump Blueprint program for measuring performance meaningfully to support strategy execution, and the Pump Evidence-Based Leadership program for leaders and managers to create measurable strategy that everybody can align to. And we have other programs that support the implementation of both of these programs, and we very much hope that this webcast helps you decide on using Pump. And if you do, head over to Pump.academy on the programs page to learn more about those programs and how we can help. Or you can reach us directly at team@pump.academy to book in no obligation discovery discussion and experience a little piece of Pump firsthand, or simply to ask any question you might have. And if you stay with us till the end of this webcast, we'll share more details about our next programs in the Australia and Asia Pacific region. And Stacey, with that, we should probably get started.
Yeah, Mark, before we do, another thing that I forgot to mention is that we're going to have a random draw today, if you're still with us at the end of the webcast, to win one of 3 copies of the book, Prove It, How to Create a High Performance Culture and Measurable Success. And it's really very tied to what we're talking with you about today. And it's kind of the how-to, I guess, for doing what we speak about today and more. So yeah, we'll be drawing that randomly at the end of the webcast. So yeah, sorry, Mark, back over to you.
It's all good. And Stacey's book, Prove It, is the recipe for how you do that, because it really addresses, or it gives leaders the playbook, if you like, for the types of behaviors to move ahead with. But let's first start with a bit of research on performance improvement and what it's all about. So Harvard Business School researchers, Jay Lorsch and Emily McTague, they studied 4 major corporate transformations and found that culture isn't something you fix directly. In every case, culture changed as a result of leaders changing their processes and their systems, including how they measured performance. And of course, a better approach to performance measurement alone won't transform the culture, but it's a it can be a great place to start, because the center of a performance culture is a shared, clear, and measurable definition of what performance really means. And our case study today perfectly illustrates this point, that a stronger performance culture is a product of the right approach to measurement.
Now, Mark's mentioned Harold, who is our CEO case study for today. This is Harold. This is Harold a few years ago, actually.
Yes.
Don't laugh, Mark. But it's yeah, Harold in 2013 when I met him. He was the CEO and co-founder of a planning and analytics software company in Germany. Oh, good grief. Cubus is the name of that company. Was the name of that company, I guess. But Harold and I actually first met in Utrecht in the Netherlands. If you've never traveled there, and being Australian, we're not really used to old ancient type cities, but this one is, and it was amazing. The old buildings and laneways, and of course the canals and bridges. Awesome. I love that city. Harold had actually come over from Germany to Utrecht to attend a pump blueprint workshop that I was teaching there. It was hosted by a data analytics company called Nova Silva. I can still remember in that room how obvious it was that Harold took performance of his company very, very seriously. But I also remember how much he didn't like my suggestion that we should stop measuring people and instead have people measuring their processes. Took a little while for him to come around to that idea, but he was open-minded and at that stage still interested enough in other parts of pump, like the results map, to take it back to Cubus and give it a try. So it turned out he did that, and he liked it enough to invite me back to run a pump training in Germany for his clients the next year. And some of his Cubus team members were there as well. So this training was at a beautiful castle in Germany, the Schloss Weitenburg in Staatsach. Absolutely stunning place. It was perched up on a hill, and the restaurant was sort of at the back on a balcony that just overlooked this cliff down to the valley below. It was breathtaking. After the workshop, though, which was great fun, Harold drove me back to Staatsach, to where the Cubus office is, because one of his teams was having their pump measure gallery. Now, the measure gallery is a step in the pump blueprint for those of you who are unfamiliar. And it's a stage where they socialize their measures, and they timed it so that I could be one of the visitors to their measure gallery, which was great. Walked into that room, you could just see and feel and hear the enthusiasm and the engagement that they had for their results and their measures. And that was really my first peek inside of how Harold was reshaping the entire culture of Cubus with pump as one of his tools. It's this reshaping that we want to show you today. And it's condensed into those three levers that Mark introduced you to, that you get when you take the right approach to measurement. But before we dive in, I want to be completely transparent with you. This is Harold now. He since sold Cubus to become a consultant so that he could help other companies perform better the way that he discovered he could help Cubus perform better. So shortly after he made that decision, he asked if he could use pump, and he joined our global pump licensee team. So this photo was taken when our global pump team got together in Noosa on the Sunshine Coast for our first conference together. It was tremendous. So there is more about Harold's case study. I'm just going to gloss over it in the webcast today. But if you want to learn more about Harold, there are a couple of links there. Deb's putting him into the chat if you want to save those links. I'm pretty sure we include them in an email to you after the webcast as well, if you don't want to click on them now. But if you're curious, a bit more about Harold now as part of our team, but also the full case study I did with him before he did join our team. Now, these three levers, let's get into them. In the next management team, after Harold did his pump training in Utrecht, he sat there with his managers and he said, look, guys, I'm going to explain to you why our vision and mission statements are so weaselly that our people don't really understand what we mean by them. So the point here is that without clarity on results, teams really can only focus on their activity, on what they're doing. But Harold wanted his teams to focus on their results, the impact they were having. So he led the management team through pump step 2. And what that does is it helps turn hard to understand, vague, weaselly, ambiguous goals into clear and natural language so that everyone can understand what's meant by them. There are 2 techniques in pump step 2, the measurability tests, which is a conversation to help you reword goals so that they are clear and understandable to everyone and measurable, and the results map, which you're seeing right here to visualize the story of what success looks like with those results. Now, those strategic results are here, the ones that Harold and his management team came up with. The pink ones are vision and mission related results, and the green ones are their strategic goals. And this was Harold's starting point to then align all the teams across Qubis to a strategic direction they could understand. Now, when teams do have that understanding of the strategic direction, they can more easily see what success looks like at their level. So Harold turned first to the development team, apparently a typical mix of engineers and artists. They had no measures. They didn't want to try to have any. They didn't believe they could be measured, but they worked with Harold through Pump and found how to articulate the results they produced, that they contributed to Qubis at their level. And you can see from, this is a photo from the measure gallery, actually, of the results map. You can see these blue results and these orange results. They're the results that belong to the development team. They came up with them as a way to show what they need to focus on to contribute to where Qubis wants to go. So success at their level to contribute to success for Qubis as a whole. Now, the development team was apparently the toughest team to start with, and similar R&D teams usually are pretty tricky to get clear results and measures for. But in the end, Harold said their buy-in was great. And of course, this was the team whose measure gallery I visited in Stuttgart. And I could see and hear and feel that buy-in firsthand. Now, Harold continued to help other teams across Qubis to do the same as the development team, the support team, HR, consulting, and sales. And once each team added their part to that full Qubis results map, everyone could see exactly what success looked like for them and how it connected to the company's long-term objectives. So one of Harold's insights from this experience, in his own words, is this: if they are aware what the real results are, then they are half done. Everything else flows from that point. Now, this is a very powerful observation, and it's central to what this first measurement lever is about in shifting culture. So how does your organization help teams see what success looks like at their level?
This is that lever 1 we've been talking about, where we found that for teams to have a clear and shared picture of success at their level, several features are essential. We need to have results-oriented strategic goals. So not just an action list, but a description of how the world, or our customers' world, will be different. So results-oriented strategic goals. And those goals need to be clearly worded strategic goals so that everyone can share the same understanding and interpretation of those goals. The other part of the lever 1 is about that cause and effect thinking. So teams align to strategy by asking the question, what must we improve that will cause the strategic goals to shift? And also that gives us visual line of sight. a simple map that shows how each team aligns to specific parts of that strategic direction. And this final feature is one that's most often missing, if you like. It's this cross-silo thinking, which goes beyond the cause and effect and explores the sideways energy and sometimes the competition between different teams' goals. All these features are built into Pump's step 2, which is captured in our results map, just like Cubus did. So let's find out how often these features are used in your organization to help teams see success at their level.
I'm going to launch a poll, Mark.
Sounds good.
Now, listed on this poll, everyone, are those 5 features that Mark just explained. So we invite you to have a look at those and tick any that you know are working well in your organization to help teams see success at their level. So I think you can click as many of those as you want to. If for whatever, I haven't got a none of the above option in there, but if you're in that case where you've got none of those things, just type a none in the chat and that'll help us add that missing piece of information. Yeah, click as many of those as you see working to help your team see success at their level. I've got a couple of nuns. Thanks,
Yeah.
Marianne and Stephen. Yeah, fair enough.
So if there's none of the above, that makes the numbers less, but
Yeah, just a couple more seconds if anybody's still thinking, but just there we go, a few more coming through.
it's a bit scary when there's none of the above, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it also means that there's easy potential, like there's low-hanging fruit, right? Just start with one of them. None or loosely, yeah, thanks, loosely written strategic goals. Thanks, Emma. There we go. Okay, I'll end it there because we're not really getting too many more, and I think the nuns in the chat are kind of balancing out our numbers. I'll show the results to you all. Mark, you've seen them, so you're probably already starting to think about what they mean to you. So probably half are saying that they have result-oriented goals, and nearly half have clearly worded strategic goals.
Yeah, and that's the ones that have voted, of course.
Yeah.
And these other ones, though, the cause and effect thinking is often missing, and that visual line of sight. There's that I will always have said and will always continue to say one of the most powerful things about that results map is the line of sight from the activity that takes place in the white space on the map through that first level of results, connecting it up then to the strategic goals. And you've also
Yeah.
got that cross-silo thinking, which is evidenced, if you like, within the results map as well. We can see results that might be, are they in conflict? Do they go together? Do we have to collaborate with our teams, or should we get the right balance?
Exactly. And like you said, the cross-silo thinking is the one that's most often missing, and that's evidenced here. And actually, if we take the nuns into account, we're probably saying a third have result-oriented goals and a quarter have clearly worded goals. So yeah, there we go. There is potential, everyone. Lever 1 clearly is not fully active in your organizations yet to trigger that performance culture. Okay, I've taken that poll away, Mark, so we can keep going. There we go. So the pump results map is the technique in step 2 of pump that we use to do this because of how well it maps and aligns results at every level, from long-term strategic objectives down to goals that teams are working on day by day. It gives people that shared picture of what success looks like, and it doesn't distract them with activities or tasks. Everyone starts with results first, and then there's context for the activities and tasks, and the ability to choose between activities and tasks that are going to lead to success. So success is not defined by spending budgets or completing project tasks. Success is defined by making an impact. And when every team can clearly see what success looks like at their level, it means our second lever for that tipping point of a performance culture then becomes possible. So yeah, I am implying there's an order in which you apply these levers. Don't randomly pull them. Start with the first one. Now, like most similar companies to Harold's, and indeed many organizations, even in the public sector, employee performance is managed to some extent by KPIs. In Cubus, it was financially managed by KPIs. So for the services team and the sales team, Cubus had an individual bonus system that was built on individual KPIs measuring each individual person's results. Now, the services team, those members had a KPI of the number of paid project days delivered to a customer. So consultants in that services team were therefore motivated to deliver as much work as possible to generate as much consulting revenue as possible. Now, this very often turned out that they charged more consulting days to the customer than was originally planned with the customer. And this is a form of gaming. Obviously, customers aren't happy about that. In the sales team, sales reps were paid by the number of leads generated for the sales pipeline. Some of you are already thinking how this one can be gamed. But it encouraged lower performers to add leads to the pipeline that weren't realistic. For example, they knew they were never going to close the deal. And that, again, of course, is another form of gaming. And later on, when the sales rep had to mark those leads as lost, there was always someone else to blame. Pricing was set too high, or the competition was unfair, or the customer wasn't honest from the outset about their buying intentions. So Harold was able to see this gaming and the impact of the individual KPIs so much more clearly now through that pump lens that he then had. So he encouraged teams to instead throw those KPIs out and design their own measures, team measures, for the goals in their results map. Now, Harold was still catching himself, right? Like he wasn't transformed overnight from the leader he was to the leader he wanted to be. So he'd still see them coming up with measures he didn't agree with. And his instinct was to say, change that. But he caught himself in time. He recognized that was the old hierarchical way and that it would undermine everything. And then he watched, even when the development team started only using some of their measures, he realized it was because they weren't convinced that the others helped them. So he really was letting them experience it all themselves rather than dictating what they should change. He let them go through the learning. So Harold used pump step 3. There's just a little corner of that template there in the photo so that the teams could go through and design their own KPIs for their performance results. And step 3 uses a technique we call measure design, and it helps you create evidence-based KPIs for your results. So then after implementing pump, they changed the sales individual bonus system into a sales and marketing team bonus system. And Harold said this was the best move that he had ever made for bonus systems. A lot of leaders, unfortunately, don't trust teams to make a shift like this, but without that trust, you are never going to get high performance teams. In Harold's own words, I am totally convinced this must be a self-experience by teams and not something that anyone from a hierarchical perspective tells them they have to do differently. And Harold also had a pretty strong indicator about whether this was working or not. So the indicator was the speed at which the data for a KPI was requested by the team that owned the KPI, and the speed that it's then provided by the data owner. So what that means is that when the data was provided immediately after it was available and it got analyzed, he knew that the teams were working with their KPIs, that they found them useful. Those who work on their KPIs with that intrinsic motivation create the conditions for making progress and using KPIs as a learning tool. So our second lever then for creating a performance culture is based on this ownership and use of measures by teams.
And it's sometimes when you see that stuff, Stacey, put out on the slide, you go, well, those measures would obviously drive the wrong behavior, but it's, as you've said with Harold's story there, you had to allow the people to sort of go through that journey themselves and have that understanding and come to those conclusions themselves rather than someone tell them.
Yep.
So that lever two then tells us that there is clearly a dynamic between how measurement is used and whether it leads to true and lasting improvement or not. The worst case scenario when measurement is imposed and used to judge people's performance and seen in such things as bonuses or promotions. And here it drives the gaming behavior of manipulating data or behaviors to make the KPIs show good results. And we saw this with Harold's sales and consulting teams, but I'm sure we've all seen this ourselves somewhere before. Even when measurement isn't used to judge people's performance for bonuses, for example, imposed measures can still feel part of a blame game. So here we often see a focus on vanity metrics that are KPIs that are chosen because we know they'll tell a good news story. And this is more typical perhaps in public sector and non-profit organisations or with leaders' remuneration as well. But when KPI selection and use is owned by the teams, those KPIs become valuable tools to learn how they can have more control or influence over their performance. The KPIs will direct their attention to causes that help them discover the levers or the drivers of the performance results that matter most. And this is the shift that Harold created or discovered by using Pump with the teams through Cubis. And the more that the teams learn from their KPIs, the more leverage they have to improve performance with them. They can more quickly and accurately choose the actions that will lift performance and keep it lifted without ongoing effort. So let's have another whiteboard. Look at a whiteboard, Stacey, and we'll explore this. So we'll ask you all then to think of a KPI in your organisation that is currently important to your leadership team. And then we'll ask you, when we get the whiteboard up, to type the name of that measure on a sticky note. Then we've got that.
It takes about 12 steps to open a whiteboard. Here we go. Everyone, you should be able to see there's a couple of panels there. It's just the top one that we're going to dive into here. You can see a similar that similar layout that that Mark just showed you. So yeah. Mark, do you want to go on with the instructions or?
Yeah. So let's have a look. So think of a KPI in your organisation that's currently important to your leadership team, and then grab a sticky note and put in the name of that measure on that note, and then place that KPI into a quadrant that's based on these dimensions of either imposed or owned and improving or worsening or not changing. And we'll try and categorize these measures that or these KPIs that we've got. The not happy jam measure sounds like a good one.
I remember that one. Could it be the same story? I don't know. I remember a not happy Jan measure. Great. So
most things are on that imposed side of things.
yeah, and that's the vanity metrics area where kind of have to measure them, but we're measuring them because they're showing us a good news story. So yeah, just to help you remember these quadrants, the up in the top left is the vanity metrics. In the bottom left are the judgment metrics. In the bottom right are the metrics that we're learning from. And in the top right, they're the metrics that we are leveraging. Was leveraging the word I used? I can't remember now in that framework. Yeah, leveraging. Yeah. So getting a couple coming out in that judgment area, batch release on time, platform transaction volume and cost.
Nicole just put a comment in there about those types of measures. Vanity, but state imposed on local government vanity measures.
Yeah.
There's so many of those that are out there. It's literally not funny.
Yeah, that's it. And by no means are we saying immediately stop measuring those things. It's not practical to, especially in cases like that, Nicole, where they're imposed by the state. But being aware of what they are and their limitations on helping you actually create the impact you're trying to means that they could possibly become less of a distraction. So yeah, ending up with a fair bit on the left-hand side there. So there's certainly potential here, Mark, for lever 2 to help more measures be owned by teams to drive the learning and leveraging side of this side of the thing. Any other comments you want to make there?
And leveraging from what Nicole just said too, you've got to see those compliance sort of measures as compliance measures, tick the box, give them the numbers, but they can't become the default performance measures of the results that you're trying to achieve. It's almost a separate criteria for those two sets of measures, and we can't see them as being the same.
Indeed. We've got one that landed in the leverage area, so surgery visits. So I think I know where that one's coming from. But yeah, obviously that one's improving and being leveraged, being able to see more patients, I guess I'll say. Yeah, great. All right, thanks everybody.
Nice.
Being aware is really important, and that helps you see how much opportunity you'll get from pulling lever 2 to get measurement more owned for learning and leveraging. All right, let me see if I can get out of here and back to the here we go. So many clicks, so many. Hang on. There we go. Are we back to it? Is everyone seeing the slide again? Yep. Great. Lovely. Okay. So the point here is that how measurement is used determines whether people are going to own it or game it. And true and lasting improvement of performance is created through ownership rather than top-down or external imposition, I guess we could include there too, given Nicole's comment before. This shifts measurement from something that's done to people to something that's owned by them. And it's that difference between, I guess, a report card and a feedback loop. So when measurement is owned and used by teams to lead their own performance improvement, our third lever of performance culture is created. So Cubus had a traditional management hierarchy, founders at the top, team leaders, and employees in teams underneath them. So being a leader really means you need a broad set of skills. You've got to have soft skills, business skills, technical skills, so much. And Harold would describe them as needing to be close to supermen and superwomen. He and his co-founder Thomas also believed that they had a lot of talented people, but not necessarily those supermen and superwomen for the future. And as the company grows, and for the time when he and Thomas might retire, that was a bit of a risk. So seeing how their teams were owning performance and using KPIs to help them improve in ways that would grow the success of Qubis, Harold and Thomas made a very radical decision to solve this problem. Admittedly, it's a decision that a lot of you may not ever be able to make, but there's still a learning we can take from it. What they did was remove the management layer entirely from Qubis. Everyone was organized in 5 self-managed teams, no boss. The principal rule was that the expert in each domain in the team, they are the default for making the final decision and owning the results that are relevant to that domain. So Pump made that possible for every team to have their own part of the results map and measures connected to the company's long-term objectives. And what you're seeing here is Thomas, one of the co-founders, and a member of another team giving collaborative feedback to the development team on their results and measures at our Pump Measure Gallery. So for each team in Qubis, there was no boss to tell them, you're doing the wrong things. You need to do it this way. Now, each team needed to ask and answer these questions for themselves. Are we doing the right things or the wrong things? Do we need to change our processes, and how? Maybe we need to change our structure. We need perhaps to change the roles and whatever, so that we can achieve the targets for the results that we've defined. So that's what they shifted to, self-managed teams. And that's the idea to take from this, is that teams can have a lot more ownership and be a lot more proactive in pursuing and improving the results that matter. Harold had another test for whether this was working or not. So he says, why do I know that the results are brilliant? It's because I have my Pump measures. So he measured the success of Qubis. So he knew that as that was improving, these changes were part of the reason that it was. In other words, Harold had trustworthy evidence that performance was improving under the new self-managed team structure. And many organizations don't have the option to remove hierarchy, of course, and they don't have to. Any organization can still benefit from teams that are capable of self-managing and improving performance without waiting for managers to push them or direct them to. So imagine how this could change the role of managers and leaders in your organization. Imagine that they could spend more time mentoring, coaching, and supporting and enabling their teams, much less time just pushing them to move. So this gives us our third lever, which is based on 2 dimensions that gauge the shift toward a performance culture.
I've got to say, Stacey, that I've heard Harold say that same thing about, the results are brilliant when you've got your Pump measures, and he calls them Pump measures. But that one really resonates with me from his story, because it's when he saw the performance measures, he could see the difference of what they were trying to achieve and the impact they were trying to have on the results. And it's when you develop them using the measure design and selection process, step 3, that you can design those measures, and it's different. They are different measures. So that leads us into lever 3, as Stacey just did. So by the way, I think some of you have already asked this question, but if what we're discussing here is resonating with you, and you know a leader, manager, or a colleague who's wrestling with this same stuff that we've been talking about, we'd love you to share the replay with them. So it's available for 7 days at pump.academy, but at any time you can reach out to us to get ongoing access to the recording or the replay of this webcast. So we're talking about lever 3. So performance management in organizations change for the better. The relationship between teams and their managers needs to change. Firstly, teams need to improve their own performance without being directed to or told to. Secondly, managers need to support teams to perform without directing them. The degree to which each of these is happening in your own organization is the gauge of how strong your performance culture is. Teams need the ownership to lead their own performance improvement, and managers need to trust and support teams to do this without pushing them. So that gives us these two scales that Stacey's just brought up there. And the performance culture is only as good as the scale with the lower rating. So a team can't increase their rating without the support of their manager. And a manager can't increase their ranking or rating without ownership of performance by their team. So where do you think your performance culture sits on these scales? So let's find out your perspective on this for your organization. So Stacey will open up another whiteboard.
She's on her way.
It's coming.
Click 3, click number 4.
So when we get this whiteboard up, we'll see that we've got these two scales set up.
And of course, everybody, it's going to be how do I get there? It's going to be
the other one.
Yeah, I'm just having trouble. There we go. And Zoom keeps putting up messages for me to help me, no doubt.
No doubt.
But it's not helping me get to the screen. There we go. Okay, Mark, go ahead. I think everyone should.
So we've got these two scales here. So same as before, jump in there, grab a Post-it note, and place it under the rating you'd give your own team right now. So this is your own team on that first scale. And then on the other scale, you can take another sticky note and place it under the rating you'd give that team's manager on the second scale. And as we said before, the minimum of those two scores is the gauge of your current performance culture. So let's take a note of what that minimum score is. Because these two scales work together.
So there must be some difference because we're not getting a perfect match of the green stickies under the first rating scale and with the second rating scale. So the team's ratings are obviously different to the managers. And if I were to make some quick assumptions, I'd say that probably if overall, Mark, it looks like the management support is lagging behind teams' willingness to improve their own performance.
Yeah.
In general.
I'd probably say that's intuitively right as well. It's sort of like coming back to some of those imposed measures or those vanity KPIs that people have. Quite often it's the management structure, agenda that's actually getting in the way of the teams being able to focus on their own improvement efforts and improvement of their own goals and results.
Yeah, there we go. Neat. If anyone wants to make a comment in the chat, just having noticed which of your scores was lower, your team score or your management score, just put which one was lower in the chat because it's a clue really about where you need to start working. Because like Mark said before, you have to start where you're lower. The scales have to move together. You can't improve teams' involvement if their management support is lagging behind it. But yeah, in the chat, if you want, which score did you end up with that was lower? And I will spend some time exiting out of the whiteboard and getting back to the slide deck, Mark.
So as we do that, then in the chat, from what we've just discussed, what is one idea you have for lifting your score to the next level? So we've got the management support was lower. I sometimes feel that, or from some of the discussions I've had with managers, that managers seem to be wanting to do these types of things with their teams and encourage their teams, but they've got this trade-off between upper levels of management and what they can do with their teams. Someone's moved the manager score. Okay, David.
Yeah,
maybe that was going lower.
It does look like that pattern we saw was right, that generally management support is lagging behind teams' willingness to take ownership there. Cool. Thanks everybody for sharing that. That was a bold move, David, actually, don't you think, Mark? By the management team scored ourselves at a 4, but we reflected on it and decided to scale it down. That's pretty honest. That's that's a management team that's really willing to own this, and I think obviously must care about it to do that, to be honest about
And
that.
that could be the one idea, is that we've realized it now, so now we can do something different.
Yeah, absolutely. And it does come back to trust, but you can trust your teams as managers and leaders. You can trust your teams to own performance when you know that they've set it up well. You know they're focusing on the right results and they own them. You know they've designed measures that make sense and they own those measures and are using them. All righty. Let's keep flowing. Sorry, Mark.
It's like you just said, people don't need the manager to tell them they need to improve things. It's that flattening of that hierarchy, like they did with Cubers.
Exactly. And like in Cubers, it doesn't mean that you've got to flatten the hierarchy at all. They could do that, but it's not necessary. It means a cultural shift, though, that is for accountability to be chosen, not imposed. And as we've been saying, it really does often start at the leadership level. Firstly, to want to lift themselves out of micromanagement and focus more time and attention on strategic work and coaching and supporting teams. And secondly, to trust that people will always want to do their best and contribute to a worthy purpose, but they do need those, the clarity, the tools, and the support to do that. So hopefully we have helped you see that culture is a symptom, not a cause, and that there are levers for how you can trigger that performance culture. High performance cultures, they run on evidence. I mean, that's what we mean by high performance. We need evidence to prove that. And shared clarity about what success will look like, trustworthy feedback as well about whether performance really is improving. Measurement is the engine that creates that evidence, which means if measurement isn't working well, the culture can't. What Harold discovered, and these 3 levers here enable for you, is that you can't build a performance culture by aiming directly at the culture. You build it by changing how results are defined, how measurement's used, and who owns it. And then the culture will follow. Of course, these aren't the only things that are needed to nurture and build a performance culture, but they are the tipping point. You start with these and you've got so much more to work with from there. So really, all of you have just told us something important about where your organization sits right now. If your scores are lower than you'd like, don't mistake that as a problem with your people, of course. It's definitely not. It is a limitation of the performance system that they have to work in. And the good news is that all 3 of these levers are practical and they are learnable. And Pump gives you the techniques to pull each one of them. So if you're wondering where to start, that's exactly what we will share with you now, Mark.
Yeah, so before that we share some pump options for you, if you have any questions for us, or feel free to just put them in the chat and Stacey and I will try and answer them very shortly. So as I said before, pump is our flagship methodology to help organisations get more from their strategic performance management approaches through meaningful measurement. So pump gives us the tools and the techniques to actually get better outcomes and better results from our performance management system and approach. It's not another thing to do. It's the detail that's missing. It's a how to do it, and it's giving us that extra set of tools that from most of our existing strategy and performance management approaches don't have. And when you integrate pump into what you're doing already, not only is it easier to create meaningful performance measures, but it strengthens every other strategic performance management approach you're already using. And developing performance measures with pump will be easier and more meaningful than any other way you've already tried. And that's because of the uniquely practical way that Stacey has created Pump's step-by-step techniques and tools. And techniques and tools are specific words that we're using because they are techniques and tools that guide the right conversations, that human side of this work, about measuring what matters. And depending on your role and your situation, we have a range of ways that you can learn and implement Pump. So we have the Pump Public Blueprint Training Workshop that's coming up in October, 5 half days between the 7th and the 14th of October.
Last one for this year, by the way.
Last one for this year. All the details are over at pump.academy, and that's a Pump Blueprint Public, where you can also register, or if you think that running your own private workshop, Pump workshop, for using the same content, same tools and techniques, sometimes using that in your own organization with your own teams and applying it directly as you go, that can be an excellent option as well. And that's there at pump.academy, Pump Blueprint Private. And if you're a leader, we also have a program specifically for your leadership team, and you can book a discovery call to get a taste of what that's about by emailing team@pump.academy. So we've still got time to answer your questions and any other things that come up, I guess. Stacey?
So get your questions ready if you've got any to pop them in the chat. But we're going to do this random draw now for a copy of the book, Prove It. And I've got this tool, right, that is called Spin and Pop, if you're interested in ever doing this in any of your own Zoom meetings. And it randomly selects, it puts all of the active participants now, all of your names into a spinning wheel and randomly draws you. I'm going to do it 3 times. But I can't figure out how to show you it happening. It would be so cool to see it. And as I'm kind of just talking, I'm trying to load the app. But yeah, I don't think I can show it to any of you, unfortunately. Mark, let me know if you can see it, but it's just
Sure.
loading right now.
What I'm picturing in my mind is spin the wheel.
It is,
It's
yeah.
got to get hold of the wheel and spin it, and it will come up with someone's name.
I tell you what, I'll just take a screenshot now, and I'll take a photo. That's faster than a screenshot. And I'll show you all what it looks like. There we go. Later, I'll put it in the email so that you can see it. So I click the spin button. So all of your names are in there, and it's spinning, just like a roulette wheel. And first name that has come up is Selena, your winner number 1. So Deb's going to take a note of who the winners are. She's going to reach out to you and get your postal address, and we'll send you out a copy via the mail. So Selena, you are winner number 1. Spin again for our second winner. And Nicole, you've won the second copy. So congratulations. Yay, thank you. She says, cool. And one more, we'll spin one more time. Oh, Selena said she's already got a copy. Would you like to respin? That's very generous of you, Selena. Maybe you have it. Just think about this. If you've got someone you could give it to, we'll still send it to you. But if you haven't, then just let us know and we will spin again. And the third winner is Simona. You are the third winner. So congratulations. Wonderful. There we go. Oh, I love all the applause. You're such an encouraging bunch of people. That's so nice. Cool. All right. So, all right, Selena, I haven't heard anything more from you. So you're still getting a copy and you can gift it to somebody that you think could use it. There we go. 3 copies of Prove It on their way out to you all once Deb reaches out to you to get your postal addresses. Mark, let's do Q&A.
Haven't seen any questions come through other than, and it was something, I don't know why that was entertaining, Stacey, but spinning the wheel and having a random draw was a bit of fun, even though we couldn't even see the wheel. It was, I don't know what it is. There's something about that picture of the spinning wheel in my mind.
Well, thanks for bringing that to life, because finding something like that for Zoom was a bit tricky. So
I
it
also have
was.
my copy too handy.
Oh, you do? There you go. Oh, good grief! I'm having trouble getting out of this. Why won't it let me go back to? Is everyone seeing the slide?
We're seeing the slide, yes.
Oh, okay, good. Then I'm lost, not you. Great. All right. So yeah,
So in
don't
the chat, we've got plenty of thanks and need to go to another meeting.
no questions. We did have one come through in advance though, Mark, from Nalini. So we might answer that one, and that's at least on the replay, and anyone else hanging around might be curious about how we respond to this one. So Nalini saying, I'm fully on board with the idea that performance measurement can drive culture to change, but I'm wondering, don't we need a little bit of culture to get performance measurements foot in the door? Leaders need to be open to the change first, right? That is a good question. I'm going to say yes. You do need leaders to at least be curious enough to give this a go and to start it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, yes, you do. And how do you spark that curiosity? I reckon there's two tools, if you like, within the stuff that we've talked about today. And we had that quadrant about the imposed measures and the ones that are improving, and even the difference between the imposed measures or the imposed KPIs and those ones that are. The leader's got to know that there's more measures than what they actually need. They need, as Harold said, they haven't got the right results, so they haven't got their pump measures. When they figure out what their results are, then they can work out their pump measures. And once they've done that, they'll see how they'll see what meaningful measures look like, and that will totally shift their mind. So I'd suggest the way to start with that is just even categorizing the measures in that quadrant that we had before that we used on the whiteboard.
Yeah.
And also then looking at the management behaviors. As David said before, the management team scored themselves a 4, I think, on the scale. And then after they thought about it, they realized they're a bit more to the left. Even that would be a realization that maybe we can do something different with our performance measures by articulating measurable results and then having a play with the measure design technique to design some measures that look different to the ones we have.
And if you want that to be a very quick and well-run session, this is what the discovery discussion is. It's it's getting your leader together with Mark to just get a taste of this for themselves in a non-threatening, no obligation, just feel it and try it kind of way. But to get them to a discovery discussion, they need to know what that's going to solve for them. So if they have problems, like Mark's pointed out, too many of the wrong kinds of measures, or results that just don't really feel important, or teams that don't know how to align to it, if they see those as problems they want to fix, then a discovery discussion is a way to get that measurements foot in the door, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So no more questions coming through. Lots of very kind thank yous. Thanks everybody for that in the chat. I'm so glad that you've enjoyed it. Like with virtually all of our webcasts, if you join us at the start, you're generally there at the end. So I want to really thank you for your participation and your engagement and staying with us right through this. So yeah, thank you everybody for joining us. Thank you everybody for participating. Mark, thank you for always sharing your experiences and insights as well in this
My
space.
pleasure, Stacey. And thanks everybody for your engagement. It's been lovely.
Until next time, everyone, we really hope you feel more inspired to give Pump a try and use it to create that tipping point for a high performance culture. Bye for now.